Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. It's a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. So the important news and editorial that are relevant for the preparation of civil services examination will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 22nd of February. The first news that is with regards to the Vostro account and how they facilitate the trade. This is from the text and context page of the Hindu, where recently the Russian account has been opened in India. We'll see the detail about this news. Second, India and Singapore launched UPI Pay Now linkages. The payment part, the UPI part will now be possible between two countries. Third, children have a right to protection in their genetic data. This is what Honorable Supreme Court has said in its verdict. The second last is China suspend major nuclear treaty with United States. We'll see the geopolitical concern emerging from this particular action by the Russian government, specifically Russian president. And the last is an editorial, India needs a budget for its young. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before I begin this session, those of you who are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful for your examination purposes, do press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is Vostro account and how they facilitate the trade. Something important for General Studies Paper 3. Under the subtopic of General Studies, that is Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization of resources, growth and development. And this particular news is also important for General Studies Paper 2, where bilateral, regional grouping and agreements are concerned. Now, why we are discussing this news? Because recently the government official has informed that 20 Russian banks have opened a special Vostro account with Partnership Bank in India. This is known as SRVA or Special Rupee Vostro account. Now, which are the banks that will be operating? The Russian bank include Rosebank, Tinkoff Bank, Cento Credit Bank, and Credit Bank of Moscow. So these are the main leading bank of Russia that will have a special rupee Vostro account in partnership with the government of India. Now, all major domestic banks have listed their nodal officer to sort out the issues faced by the exporter under the arrangement. So in this context, the domestic exporter as well as the importer settlement part will be taken care of. Now, what is Vostro account? This is something specifically important for the prelims examination also. So by the term, Vostro means account that a domestic bank holds in a foreign bank, right? In a domestic bank currency, in which the case of India, it is a rupee. So hypothetically, to give you an example, suppose it is like domestic bank is holding a particular bank account in the foreign bank. So SBI, for example, SBI is holding an account with a Russian bank. You can take any example. No, I'm giving you a hypothetical example of Russian bank. So when SBI is holding an account with the Russian bank, that particular account will be called as a Vostro account, and the entire part of the currency exchange will take place in INR, that is Indian rupee. That specific account is known as Vostro, and there's opposite to Vostro, that is Nostro. In Nostro, when a Russian bank is holding an account with SBI, their account will be known as a Nostro account. So these are the two important terms in the recent time that has emerged, relevant for many other competitive examination also. Now, in case of trade with Russia, payment in rupee of the export and import of good will be going to the Vostro account, so that there's no dispute in terms of making the final payment and settlement part. The owner and beneficiaries of this money will be the exporter and importer of the country concerned. It can be either from the other side or from India, right? So both the exporter part will be benefited. Even the importer whom are involved in the business from Russia or either from India will be benefited under the Vostro account settlement. Now, what is SRVA arrangement? This is specifically known as a special rupee Vostro account. It is an additional arrangement to the existing system which uses friendly comfortable of the currencies and work in the complementary system. So अगर कंवर्टिबिलिटी की बात करें, जो रुपीस को कन्वर्ट करनी, the currencies that is being converted will be taken care of with the special rupee Vostro account. It is an integral offshoot correspondent banking that entails a bank or intermediaries and this facilitate in some specific aspect. तो कुछ important component की अगर बात करें SRVA के अरेंजमेंट की, SRVA स्टैंड फॉर स्पेशल रूपी वोस्ट्रो अकाउंट, तो इसके जो एडवांटेजेस होंगे, द फर्स्ट विल बी वायर ट्रांसफर. व्हाट इज वायर ट्रांसफर? वायर ट्रांसफर इज एन expeditious method to transfer fund between the bank. तो जिस तरह से fastest method you do IMPS in India, within India if you are doing any transition, you go for IMPS for the immediate transition, right? So IMPS is being done. Other than that, there is NEFT which you proceed further. So in this case, there is a wire transfer which expedite the entire process of transfer between the bank account. Now, the second important component is the conduct of business transitions. Accept deposit, gather document on behalf of the other bank. So these are the added advantages that will be there under the SRVA agreement. And there can be a possible question in UPSC prelims examination where 2 statement or 3 statement question can be asked with regards to the SRVA arrangements. Now, its domestic bank gain a wider access to the foreign financial market and serve as an international client without having to be physically present abroad. So they need to have a physical presence there because we are already holding a Vostro account, and in this case, the international client is also benefiting. Now, how does it functions? Talking about the framework. So first, it involves 3 important components. First is invoicing, second is exchange rate, and third is settlement. So invoicing की बात करें, invoicing entails that all exporters and importer must be denominated and invoiced in INR. तो इंडियन जो रुपीज हैं उनमें कैलकुलेशन की जाएगी. एक्सचेंज रेट between the currencies of the trading partner countries, that would be market determined. So exchange rate is a market determined. I think most of you must be aware of the concept of the exchange rate. Now, settlement की अगर बात करें, final settlement also take place in the Indian national rupees. So definitely, if there's a Vostro account operating in any other country, that will be there in the local currency of a specific country. In India, in Indian case and Indian Russian case, it will be always in INR. Now, the domestic importers are required to make payment in INR into a special rupee Vostro account of correspondence banks against the invoice of supplying goods and services of overseas sellers and supplier. Similarly, अगर domestic operators जो होंगे, they will be also paid the export part in INR, और जो balance होगी, that will be in designated account of corresponding bank in the partner country, right? I have given you an example hypothetically about the SBI. So reporting of the cross-border transitions are done in accordance with the existing guideline under the FEMA. So FEMA stand for Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. उसके regulations के हिसाब से सारी transition होगी. There are certain limitations, certain part of the provision that has to be adherently followed when it comes to international transition that is taking place. So FEMA के provisions को mandatorily उस guideline में रखी जाएगी, right? Now, what is the eligibility criteria for the bank? So, from the bank, partner countries are required to approach an authorized domestic dealers bank for opening a special rupee Vostro account, and domestic bank would then seek approval from the apex banking regulator. India में अगर apex banking regulator की बात करें, this is definitely Reserve Bank of India, right, which will have a detailed part of the arrangement. And it would have a responsibility of the domestic bank to ensure that the respondent bank is not from a country mentioned or updated financial action task force, public statement on high risk and non-cooperative jurisdiction. तो ऐसे countries के specific बैंक जो कि already FATF के task force में किसी concerns पे हैं and even a alert has been raised from that particular bank or entities of bank, there cannot be a criteria for opening a Vostro account. Now, what is the purpose? Why the part of the thing is taken care of? If you see the Economic Survey 2023, the latest one, उस इकोनॉमिक सर्वे में बताई गई है दैट फ्रेमवर्क कुड लार्जली रिड्यूस द नेट डिमांड ऑफ द फॉरेन एक्सचेंज, राइट? एंड स्पेसिफिकली इफ यू सी द इंटरनेशनल मार्केट, the entire trade part is taken care by the US dollar, right? तो US dollar की denominations में सारी चीजें settlement की जाती है, and even the settlement part for the current account is related to trade flows. Now, in this framework, it will also reduce the need for holding the foreign exchange reserve, और जो डिपेंडेंस है फॉरेन करेंसी पे वो भी काफी कम होगी, स्पेसिफिकली फॉर कंट्री लाइक इंडिया विच नीड टू होल्ड अ लॉट ऑफ फॉरेन रिजर्व व्हेन इट्स कम टू द सेटलमेंट पार्ट, राइट? एंड एज पर द ब्यूरो ऑफ इंटरनेशनल सेटलमेंट Triennial Center Survey 2022, the US dollar was the most dominant vehicle currency that account for 88% of the trade. तो अगर आप पूरी ट्रेड वैल्यू की बात करें तो जो डॉलर्स है उसमें 88% तक ट्रेड की जाती है, और जो INR की वैल्यू है दैट इज ओनली अ मिनिमल ऑफ 1.6%. Now, I think this example will give you an idea. This data is given you idea like how the essentiality, the need is there that we should come up with a part of the INR in the trade in specific countries. Like for hypothetically, if I've given an example for Russia, for many other countries, this can be proceeded, right? So this will give an added advantage for country like India, where the INR part will be more involved and there will be less requirement for the forex reserve, specifically the US dollar. Now, moving to the other news, India and Singapore launched UPI and Pay Now linkages, something important for General Studies Paper 2, under the subtopic Effect of Policies and Politics of Developed and Developing Countries on India's Interest and India's Diaspora. So recently, India and Singapore has linked their system to enable the real-time system money transfer between the two countries. And इंडिया की बात करें, इंडिया की स्पेसिफिक यूपीआई जो पेमेंट गेटवे है, and even the UPI was integrated with Singapore Pay Now, that will be paying a faster and more transparent remittances that will be taking place between two countries, right? For any transfer, if you made to any other country, there's a part of settlement time that is involved, right? So after a certain period of settlement, only the amount is credited to the beneficiaries. But अब UPI allow करने के बाद सिंगापुर पे किसी भी transactions को immediately carry forward किया जा सकेगा with the help of UPI in India and Pay Now, which is the entity for Singapore. So they will be acting as a bridge between the merchants. The Prime Minister of India, along with the Singapore counterpart, has launched this via a video conference, and even the RBI part is taking the entire technical assistance in this term. Now, advantages की अगर बात करें, the real-time money transfer will benefit the migrant workers. जितने migrant workers हैं, professionals हैं, students हैं, their family in the foreign remittances will benefit it. दोनों तरफ से. Most of the people, Indian diaspora is living in Singapore, so they people are sending money as a remittances to India. Now, this is going to be possible where UPI payment can further be done. Now, Singapore has a large number of Indian worker and student, resulting in a subcontinent inbound and outbound remittances everywhere. Every year, specifically, the number is there. Now, this means that the UPI and Pay Now user will be able to send and receive money between the participant financial institution across two countries in real time, right? तो इंडिया में कुछ स्पेसिफिक फॉरेन बैंक्स की अगर बात करें, स्पेसिफिकली सिंगापुर की DG बैंक इज देयर, DBS बैंक इज देयर, दैट इज the Developmental Bank of Singapore that is operating in India. I'll give you a data where the actual part is taken care of. Now, the user can also do using the mobile phone via the UPI ID's virtual payment address. Like where in a normal way, however we use UPI, you have to simple enter your UPI pin and a transaction is processed. The same methodology will follow between India and Singapore. Now, boost to the cross-border retail payments. The move is expected to have a major boost in the cross retail payment and remittances between the two countries, that is amounting to $1 billion annually. And even the UPI Pay Now linkages will have a milestone in infrastructure development, cross-border payment between India and Singapore. And the total value is about 74 billion transactions, the worth of 126 trillion, which is about SDG 2 trillion, which will be carried out via UPI. And the UPI Pay Now linkages is the world's first real-time payment system linking to a scalable cloud-based infrastructure, which can now accommodate future increase in the volume of remittances in the remittances traffic. Now, also the first linkages to the features of non-banking institutions that a participant will take care of the entire cross-border retail payment. Now, just to give you an idea, the list of Indian bank and the UPI handle platform for receiving and sending the remittances. कुछ अगर banking की बात करें, so the receiving bank is Axis Bank, the DBS, that is Developmental Bank of Singapore, ICICI Bank, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, and State Bank of India. And the UPI handle is also mentioned. I think most of you must be aware of this. And this is how the sending bank, if you talk about sending bank, the most bank is like ICICI, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, and the Bank of India. Now, moving to the other news, children have the right to protect their genetic data. This is what Honorable Supreme Court has said. Something important for General Studies paper 2 under the subtopic of General Studies, that is welfare schemes for the vulnerable section of the population by the center and the state government. Now, the Supreme Court in its recent judgment has held that the children cannot be mechanically subject to a DNA test in each and every cases between the varying parents and a shortcut to establish the proof of identity and proof of infidelity. तो ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट जजमेंट है सुप्रीम कोर्ट की, जहाँ पे चाइल्ड राइट्स और राइट टू प्राइवेसी पे खासा बात किया गया, ध्यान दिया गया. सो दिस कैन अगेन बी यूज्ड एज एन एग्जांपल इन द मेंस पेपर. And the bench of Supreme Court noted that the genetic information is personal and intimate. The judgment further emphasized that children genetic information is a part of his fundamental right to privacy. Right? In many judgments, the Honorable Supreme Court has fundamentally raised the issue of right to privacy. Right to privacy in terms of Aadhaar, right to privacy in terms of any snooping, right of privacy in terms of these DNA tests is also important. Now, children have right and children have right not to have their legitimate questions before the court of law, and it is an essential attribute to the right of privacy. This is what the bench of the Supreme Court has noted while addressing the petitions. Now, there's a psychological trauma which a child faces. This is what the court has observed. The Supreme Court bench has drew attention that right to privacy, autonomy, and identity recognized under the United Nations Convention on Child Right of the Child Right, right? और अगर बात करें इस कन्वेंशन की, एक्नॉलेज करती है जहाँ पे इंडिविजुअल जो कंट्रोल दैट द इंडिविजुअल इंक्लूडिंग चिल्ड्रन हैव देयर ओन पर्सनल बाउंड्रीज बाय विच दे डिफाइन in relations to the other person, right? So there's specific guideline under the United Nations Convention on Right of Children. Now, children are not to be deprived of any entitlement or influence understand their sense or simply by the virtue of being a children. So, there's a legal term that is there. There's National Human Rights Commission that is also involved. Child Protection Group is also operating. So they, as a stakeholder, need to take care of this thing as well. The judgment said that the child should not be lost in search of paternity, and beside the mechanical order, the DNA test would also harm the reputation and dignity of a mother. So these all points were highlighted and noted by Honorable Supreme Court. Now, Russia suspend measure nuclear treaty with the United States, something important for General Studies paper 2 under the subtopic that is bilateral regional grouping and agreement involving India and affecting India's interest. In this context, we are mostly confining ourselves to Russia and United States. Now, recently, the Russian president has announced the suspension of the participant in the last remaining nuclear treaty with the United States. There are a lot of anticipations about the decision taken by the Russia. And to my personal opinion, the US president has recently visited Ukraine capital, and the reason being this decision was taken by Russian president, right? So there's a escalations between the war that is ongoing between Ukraine and Russia, and US has been already advocating and supporting Ukraine in this part, right? So the reason being this decision has come from the Russian president, and it cited that the ground based on strategic nuclear weapons on to combat the pass of the duty that processed Russia's part, and Russia had earlier said that they wanted to preserve the treaty despite it called a destructive US approach to arms control. There are other entity involved in this context, but if you specifically see the part of the decision taken by the Russian government is to pressurize the United States government. Right? They don't want NATO to get an alliance with it and even support Ukraine, because Russia in this war is trying to win it, but it has taken a longer stretch. It is not that easy because many countries, even European Union, Russia, is supporting on their part. Now, about the New START Treaty. The New START Treaty is signed between the then President of United States, Barack Obama, and then President of United States, that is Dmitry Medvedev, in 2010. So 2010 में ये की गई थी agreement, and the treaty caps the number of strategic nuclear warhead that the United States and Russia can deploy. और अगर together बात करें ये दोनों countries की, they hold 90% of the world nuclear weapon. I'll show you a data where it will be evident for you to just relate this. The New START Treaty limit both sides to 1,550 warheads on the deployment of the ballistic missiles, submarine ballistic missiles, and heavy bombers. Both meet the center limit by 2018. The New START Treaty was extended in 2021 when the new president, Joe Biden, has taken his office. So these parts were taken care of as a normalcy and as a part of procedure that has to be followed. But the new decision taken by the Russian president will definitely impact the relationship between US and Russia. Now, new arms treaty की अगर बात करें, this is what will be the part of Russia. US के पास 1968 and even the part for is like 115. For Russia, these are the number. How this will be affected, this is there. Now, something more that I wanted to tell you on this part is about the implication of suspension. The suspension of the New START Treaty may mean that it would have a harder for the US to monitor the compliance part because this will be impacted. And Russia has already suspended the mutual inspections of nuclear weapon site and the participant in the bilateral consultative commissions, right? So if you look into the entire warhead arsenal between Russia and United States, so these are the number, including the warhead that is there in the stockpile, right? So for Russia, it is 6,500. For United States, is 6,185. If you see India part, it is only 130 to 140, right? And these are the other country with their nuclear arsenal. And the lowest in this figure is for North Korea, that is 20 to 30. The sources is from the Federation of American Scientists and data is for 2019. Now, moving to the editorial of the day, India needs a budget for its young, something important for General Studies paper 2 under the subtopic, that is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from its design and implementations. Now, what are the issues that is involved under this editorial? Before we look into the issue part, firstly, what is the theme? The theme for this is youth for nation development, how the youth part is taking care for the entire nation development. It will be the issues that will include the key proposals in the union budget, public-private complementaries, or you can see the collaborations, the PPP model, investment in the people and investment in futures, fears about the fiscal deficit, and the way forward. Now, youth is a key force and play a vital role in the nation building. India has a huge demographic dividend which potentially can be used to harness our economy, to harness our development. In this regard, the government of India has released National Youth Policy 2022, which is a 10-year vision for youth development, which is aligning with the SDG goal, that is Sustainable Development Goal. Now, India accounts for 20.6% of the worldwide population for 15 to 29-year-old. And this means that the year ahead, every 5 workers will be deployed from India only. So this is the potential, this is a demographic dividend of India. Now, what are the key proposal in the union budget? इस बार की बजट में कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर पे खासा ध्यान दिया गया और उसे बढ़ाया गया है. And even building infrastructure and physical infrastructure, mainly transport, energy and defense, has been put in place. And their figure that is expected that these allocation will be higher to 3.2 trillion, right? And the revised one is again जो revised estimate है और जो actual estimations है उनमें भी changes की गई है. And the other part which has fallen in the part of the total allocation is the subsidies, right? जो social sectors हैं या फिर जो subsidies हैं उनमें इस बजट पे काफ़ी गिरावट की गई है. Among them, the first is with regards to food security, the other is fertilizer subsidy, and the third is Manrega. The total allocations to Manrega has been reduced to 60,000 crore rupees, right? And there's a marginal increase in the allocations for health, education and agriculture, and even for Anganwadi scheme, where the impact is taken into the account for inflations. Now, public-private complementaries या partnership की बात करें, investment as a proportion of income and GDP indices is a rate which country productive capabilities are growing. In India, this proportion has rose steadily since mid 2000 and peaked up in 42% in 2007, which was better than China at point, right? So the part of the proportion that is increasing is higher than China, and the higher rate of investment has translated to a high speed rate of economic progress, which lasted until 2010. So see, India is making its investment, even the $5 trillion economy, the target which was sent by India, the government of India is being put forward. काफ़ी ज़्यादा उस पर कोशिश की जा रही है. And even post COVID-19, we have seen the sectors are improving. In that context, the public-private complementaries will be an aiding factor in achieving all the targets. Investment in people and investment in future, public expenditures की बात करें, social sector constitute an investment where more predominantly young population will be taken care of, and under investment in education, health, and undercut in the changes in the global economy has increased the domination by knowledge. Government expenditures की अगर बात करें, health and education can provide a boost to supply and even fund a knowledge-driven economy. So, online teaching, online classes, and other online assistance with all other government scheme has been taken care in the union budget. Last year also there was focus, and this year also government has put focus. And there's need to have new jobs as a teacher, as a doctor, especially for women, and greater supply of younger professional and skilled work, right? So although during the 75 year of independence, although the government has said that they will be giving more emphasis on the part of the skill development, the vocational courses, and even a special budget allocation has also been made promoting the vocational studies, even the apprentice part, and developing the national skill, where entrepreneurship is again some of the important component of the part of the investment and strategies. Now, fears about the fiscal deficit. अगर बात करें inflation fears, that fiscal deficit of the government that is only to be counterproductive in posing the vast reserve that is untapped for the human resources which India can go on. And the government debt has largely a domestic financial institutions, including the public sector, insurance companies, and the provident fund. So these are the debt that financial institutions has largely been in domestic one. And in other words, the debt in the government was to have people with their country saving financial institution that has been mobilized, right? So fears about the fiscal deficit is evident. This part also need to be taken care of once the economy is recovering. Post to that, like in the next financial year, we can see things are moving out in a better way. Now, way forward, higher income and higher level of development will lead to the creations of fresh saving that will help to pay off the debt. And proportions of populations in India has aged 30 years, above which has rose to 58.6 in 2040 and 37.5% in 2000, right? So these are the data upon which the proportion population will be rising. And the boost in the government expenditure will provide food security, health, educations, and only brighten the future for millions of the youngsters. So young people, youth need to harness well, because there has a huge potential in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of giving boost to the economy and contributing ultimately to the nation development. Now, moving to the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday questions. For first question, the correct option is A. For second question, the correct option is B. Today's MCQ for practice. UPI, that is the Unified Payment Interface. There was a discussion with India and Singapore. So in that regard, you have to answer that UPI is a system that power multiple bank into the single mobile application. It was launched in 2006 by the NPCI, that is the National Payment Corporation of India, which is an umbrella body for taking care for the entire payment and settlement. So check out for the correct option. And second question of the day, consider the following statement with regards to anti-maritime piracy bill. It will be in line with the United Nations Convention on Laws of Sea. Only provision regarding to that punishment has been amended under the bill, and India has a specific law or legal provision in IPC or CRPC on pricing. So do check it out for the correct option, whether 1, 1 and 3, 2 and 3 and all the above are the correct one. So this was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.